All right. Hello, my name is Omari Solisbury of Converge Media. Joined today by my colleague and good friend, Bobby Steels, the Postman. And basically today we're doing a series of videos here, especially for our supporters of Converge, people who are supporting us through Patreon and through the Facebook platform. Just to be able to let you guys know how much we really appreciate you. And it's crazy because what I wanted to do is literally just sit down and try to be able to reply to every single person. You know, I'm old school like that. Then I found out that there was so many of you who are out there who really help drive us forward. As you guys know, our operation here is like 99% donation driven. And so there's an opportunity for us to kind of just say thank you to you and thank you for your support. And we figured one of the best ways to be able to do that is to let you know more about us and our experience here. And if you never felt you got anything worthwhile out of Converge before, after talking to this guy, you might be ready to make a donation for the next 5 years.
Yeah, so my name is Bobby Stills. I work with Converge Media. A little bit more about me. I have a background. I was a chef for a very long time. I moved into consulting. I started a media company with another friend of mine. It's called Soundcasting Network. That's how I met Omari and met everybody at Converge and started doing some work with them and stuff like that. I do a little bit of consulting. I do a little bit of everything. And that's kind of why I like Converge. And I like the space that they operate in is because they always are welcoming to people to come in and grow and learn and start conversations. And that's kind of why I'm here.
Yeah.
I talk a lot.
Bobby Steels is supposed to. So the way this is supposed to work is I ask you some questions, you ask me some questions. A lot of people who are with us right now are people who kind of joined us around the protests. Mm-hmm. So at least this series, this sit down right here, maybe it's questions around the protest. That's okay with you?
Yeah, it's first fine with me. You know, I'm an open book.
So I'll tell people. So I knew Bobby for a while, and he actually built a studio. We worked together at another studio on South Jackson Street. But when I started covering the protests, I was out there marching, and this was before the Western Barricade. You know, it was marches in the street. And the marches, when they first started, man, they would go for hours.
I followed along on the TV, on Twitch, and I followed other people's pages.
You'd be out there. I'd be marching, man. It'd be 3-4 hours in, trying to live stream, and no water, no nothing. I'd be like, man, if only I had a water. And then boom, out of nowhere, here's Bobby Steele shows up with a water. And not even just for me, it's like for everybody out there.
Oh, man.
If I just had some food, boom, here's Bobby with Kind bars and all this other kinds of stuff. And it was wild. And then, you know, the marching protest, at least in the city center, only lasted for a few days before it went to the Western Barricade. Then you sit up there in the Western Barricade, and the first day really of the Western Barricade, the tear gas came out. It was the tear gas, the pepper spray, the flashbangs all came out. And so you sit out there, and I'd be in the thing, and people would be like, hey, man, it looks like the police got their gas masks on. So I'd say in the stream, like, I don't have a gas mask. Next thing you know, here's Bobby Steels with a gas mask. Man, I don't have goggles or a glove. Here's Bobby Steels. I remember one time I was sitting out there again on the Western Barricade. I was like, man, I'm hungry. Bobby Steels comes out with 2 hot dogs. He's just popping up. And then, you know, I felt bad because I was talking to myself. I was like, man, there's no ketchup. Then he disappears. And he comes back and hot dogs and ketchup. But, you know, and so that's Bobby Steels, the Postman. That's what the Postman, because, you know, people in the stream were like, man, this guy, he delivers like the Postman. You know, everything to be in there.
The people named me that, you know?
Yeah, and we'd be out there though, and you know, after the first day, I think when Bobby saw what we were trying to do and really like documenting stuff in live stream, Bobby was like, bro, man, it's not safe for you to just be you out here. And me and Bobby, I mean, we was together thick and thin at Eric Calligraphy. And so basically I moved around with the camera, and it would be Bobby and Eric, you know, watching my front, back, left and right. And it was a lot of pitfalls back then.
I mean, the thing about it was, you know, my purpose when I was there, you know, I wanted to support because I also, you know, worked in media, and I had my own team out there. I had people out there that were shooting video and shooting photography, and I didn't feel it was safe for them either. And so I couldn't be around them, and so I kind of said, hey, look, if you want to be out here covering this, this is on you, but, you know, I can't protect you because I'm starting to fall back, and I had a different role to play, and that was when everybody was taking off and flashbangs were going off and the tear gas was getting, my thing was to be able to come in. I had safety gear to pull them out to get them to medics or something like that, and that's kind of the role I played. And it was easy for me because I navigate through crowds pretty well, and I'm very resourceful when it comes to things. So when I saw you out there every day, the dedication that you had and making sure that that everybody had a perspective of both sides, it became really important to me to make sure that you could continue to do that safely without being harmed. And so I took it upon myself, and I also had people that are watching my back. So I wasn't in there going in there reckless or anything like that. People also were there to support me. It's a support line. You know what I'm saying? So, I know you say like, Robbie, I'm bad. And I was like, no, there's people there. These people gather stuff for me. I need this. Every day I'd walk away. I'd reach out to people. We're low on this. We're low on that. They'd call me. What do you guys need? Whether it be PPE, medics, safety gear, food. There were people that I had to get that. I didn't have that stuff just on deck. You know what I'm saying? I can find you what you need. So, I want to thank all the people that were there during those times too. The people that were supporting us back then. Before we even had a lot of coverage just on Converge. We were just going live back then.
Yeah, I mean, we had no idea. Even back then, we had no idea there was that many people are watching.
I mean, yeah. I remember I showed you one day. O didn't know. He's young man, but he's old O. He didn't know anything about Twitch or anything like that. He didn't know about Discord. And I was saying, yo, man, you got like 400,000, 500,000 people watching you, and they're using your voice. I think that's something that, your commentary is kind of what, it's not even so much necessarily the footage, but your commentary is just straight and like to the point and very fair and balanced. And I think that's why a lot of people appreciated and tuned into your stream, was because it wasn't like, oh, look at these guys, or oh, look at these guys, or any kind of agenda. It was like, this is what's going on. This is my viewpoint. This is what I see. This is my narration. This is my perspective. You're welcome to join me on this, and listen in, or you're not. It's fair and balanced, and that's something I could definitely rock with. And that's when I was like, I like to talk. I'll just sit back here and, I'll hand you hot dogs all day. You need ketchup? I'll get you that ketchup, man.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying?
It was, when you look back at it right now, what are some of the biggest, your biggest memories or takeaways, either good or bad?
I mean, definitely. I was, I don't want to say fortunate enough, lucky enough. I don't even know if I'd say that, but I got to go when that Western Barricade was there. I got escorted. I'll tell this story. I haven't told very many people this story. I have friends. I lived in that neighborhood for 13 years. I have friends that own businesses there. I have friends who are in property management in that neighborhood. I know people that are in the police force. I know a lot of the protesters, a lot of the organizers there personally. This is not even on a business aspect, But so I was lucky enough to be able to go behind police lines and get a view, being escorted through the police to go and meet a friend who lived within the Western Barricade. And the aggression that the police officers had at the Western Barricade, and that tension and that buildup and that angst and that not knowing and wanting change and the police waiting to react and just all that riled up anger. And then you get back there to where 12th's at, and it's just like mad chill. And the cops are just hanging with the National Guard, and they're laughing and joking. Now, when I came through being escorted, the tone changed, the temperature changed back there, and they were on alert. Who is this guy? I wear all black. I'm carrying my stuff because, I look like I could be a protester, and technically I am a protester. I want change. But I'm there in a media sense working. So I have to wear my media cap. But to watch them on guard looking at me and judging me just for the way I look and I walk, it's that same thing that people are fighting for across on the other side of that Western Barricade, until one of the police officers met me and came and said something. And then it was all, oh, this is a good guy, this is one guy's one of us. No, I'm just a normal person being to walk through. But then on the other side, the flip coin, that tension, that Western Barricade, once you moved into the park, it was people playing with their dogs, having a good time, listening
Yeah,
to
they're
music.
playing ultimate frisbee.
You know, they're talking about
martial law was playing.
Yeah, you know, so it was nice. Those perspectives, and that's what I'm saying. Lucky enough, fortunate enough. I don't know which way to say it, but you know, I got to see behind the police lines and what they were doing back there, and you know, and then you were up front most of the time. There was all sorts of stuff going on in the park, and to see, that's one of my biggest, is watching that formation of that neighborhood change into the Chop Chaz. That's the memory that I really hold really close, is at that one point where the protesters were really all united and trying to do one thing, and the police were just kind of holding the line, and there wasn't, that flashpoint hadn't happened yet of to where the violence started. You know, it just, the stuff from downtown had moved up there, and it was just a standoff. And then, you know, everybody shows up every day. Remember the long nights, the long hours of, you know, what it would turn into. I mean, that's something that I really think about a long time, is that for that Western Barricade first happened, not even the Chop Chaz.
Sometimes I think, like, what would have happened if the city trusted the people like they want the people to trust the city? Because that Sunday march that went up Pine Street was the most peaceful march of any I've been on. Man,
Yeah.
they wanted to stop and pray and kneel with everybody and all these other kinds of things. The chants were it was almost like Sunday service. And they got up there to the East Precinct, and the East Precinct, they put the barricades there twice.
Angered them.
And you got to think, oh, like, what would the outcome have been if the city trusted the people?
I think it would have been just like every other march that happens here in Seattle. I mean, Seattle's known for a long time to hold protests and marches for everything. You know, that's why a lot of people come here. The city is very welcoming to all different ideologies and positions, and they allow the people to express themselves, and they're okay with you blocking the streets because it's something you believe in.
300 protests a year in Seattle.
Exactly. And so why this particular one? You know, you had mentioned that to, I think, Chief Best, as to, you know, the people weren't trusted, and it was going off something that happened in another city.
Right, and the thing about that is that the SPD was saying, don't judge us off of the actions of the Minneapolis police, but at the same time, SPD perceived a judgment against the people based upon an action that the people in Minneapolis took against a police precinct.
What did you think? What did you think was going to happen? Did you know that the Western Barricade was being put up? Did you know they were drawing a line up there? I had no idea.
Well, I knew there's something, because they had deployed a barricade on that Sunday.
Yeah.
Because I was in that march and went all the way up Pine, and they ran into the alley and came out with the metal barriers, and they stopped everybody there, and they stopped them twice. And so that's why that march the next day went straight up Pine, because they just wanted to march past the East Precinct.
Yeah.
The police never believed the people. And so that's when that next day, though, you know, that Sunday people marched, the police put out a barricade, and then ultimately they just turned around, they went another direction.
Yeah.
That Monday, with all those people, it wasn't going to go down like that. And the police had a barricade, again, bicycle rack barricade that was out there. But you know, it makes you wonder, though, that before, you know, who set the posture to what. And I know that clearly, you know, there was the riot downtown Seattle.
Yeah.
By any definition, it was chaos down there that Saturday. But that Sunday, man, you know, the peace was there, because to be honest with you, a lot of the people who were intentional rioters, they don't like to stick around for the National Guard. They go somewhere else. And then where they went to Bellevue, and they went to Tukwila. All those guys left the city.
I mean, I keep saying this, and I've talked about it with many people. It takes all sorts. There's different types of protesters out there, and to judge every single one out there for the actions of others, you know, it's just the police say the same thing, but then they go in and they do that. Yeah. It's like, you're all looters, you're all rioters, you're all destroying stuff, you're all setting stuff on fire. I know me personally, you've been there. We've stopped things from happening that we didn't think was right. You said on this show numerous times, like, destroying people's private property is not okay. Setting fire where people live is not okay. And that I don't agree with that. I don't think it's okay. But to then judge the whole entire thing and think that's strictly what people are going to be doing is not fair. It's not fair, and you have to judge a person by a person's action. Not necessarily the entire group.
Especially the police. Like the police, well, what we see is, like I said, in a lot of, especially early on, people were all bundled in as to like they're all this or that, and even now. When the word protester now is very vague, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I remember we were very, very careful about terminology and very mindful of the way we spoke about the opposition to the police officers, because everybody has a different way of protesting. Some people do it from their homes and they pray. Other people come out and they provide goods and services to people out there in need. So I always try to approach every situation around this protest with an open mind and open ears to hear, where they come from and why they're out there. And I mean, you've helped me a lot. You've taught me a lot about, when your mom says, one mouth, two ears. It's, you gotta try to listen. So, what's your history with protests? How did you know? Because I remember when I started telling you about some of these different factions and different groups within this protest, you were kind of like, what? These guys, who are these guys? What do these guys do? What groups? How much did you know about, what's your kind of history with protests?
I mean, in protests, it's funny because if you Google something, it's me and my daughter's name from where Seattle Times wrote an article on me and her back when she was like 7.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, she's 23 now.
Yeah.
So, in Seattle, I've been involved in a lot of demonstrations and a lot of marches and some protests, and some people, those are all the same thing. Mm-hmm. And as far as coverage, the last protest I covered was 2016 May Day.
Yeah.
And even there, it's a mixed bag. May Day, you get some of everybody that's in there. So I'm aware that no protest is just of one kind of group or whatever, but the thing is, the Western Barricade, at least to me, the Western Barricade was a lot of just regular people who weren't so much tied up into affiliations or this. These were just people who were enraged by this crime against humanity against George Floyd. Mm-hmm. Those early days, those were just people just coming out their house. Now, I think as it went on and the CHOP formed, then you had all these different groups and factions that were out there and everything else. Because if those factions were there from the beginning, then we would have saw leadership on the Western Barricade. Mm-hmm. And you didn't find any leadership on the Western Barricade. It was a constant rotation.
It was a unified opinion and
100%
point. That unification of everybody was these crimes against humanity, against people need to stop.
Yeah, and it didn't take this group or this ideology or this philosophy, and you got some of everybody out there at the Western Barricade. These other groups began to form when the Chaz, the CHOP, and everything else. You know what I'm saying? At least really like coalesce. But I mean, you got to remember, I came out there. I've been covering issues around gentrification, predatory real estate practices, education, business, in the Central District and South End. So my coverage when I went out there to cover the protest was to cover the protest and just in a broad sense, is what's happening, is what's going on. And not to be an investigative reporter as to now this group is infiltrated.
Yeah.
And I still don't want to do that. Yeah. It's that's not really where I'm at.
It's a big onion to peel.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is just on our everyday coverage, remember, it was just another layer of the onion, man. The onion just kept peeling. And you'd be like, I mean, it was always something new that was out there.
New and exciting.
And I think the one thing I saw, though, that at least from my community was that, there was no real established leaders that are out there. Now, there's lots of new leaders that came to the forefront around CHOP and Chaz, and some of them have already fizzled out. Some of them they're still there, but they're in the shadows, and other of them they're still out in the streets. Yeah. But day after day, I'd be in the stream being like, where are the leaders? Where are the leaders?
I mean, you would talk to some of them. You would talk to some people that you expected to see out there, and I expected to see a lot of faces, familiar faces. I'd actually ran into some of those people that we expected to see out there, and I saw them there, but they weren't getting up and speaking in front of people and leading people. They were there. They're moving in the shadows. They're moving in the back. They're still working, and just because you didn't see their face and stuff like that, I think that was really tough for me. Was to not have somebody out there for people to follow and listen to. There was no direction.
The Harriet Tubman Foundation for Safe Passage. Yeah. What's her name? Nas. Yeah. They had the QR code survey. So they might have the actual only data, real data out of the whole CHOP experience. And they had all these people take the survey. And of course, based on population of the CHOP, 90+% of the respondents were white. But the number one thing that they responded with is saying they just want to know who to follow. Yeah. They had no idea. They're like, man, we're here, we're down, we're whatever, but who do we follow?
It was a new person every day.
Sometimes 3 times a day.
I mean, the switch. I mean, what were we calling it? The CHOP timeline. Yeah. The CHOP timeline is short.
It's short. I would say you get chopped out there, real. You get booed. Boo! Somebody get the megaphone. Boo! Get him out of here.
I mean, it became. That's not. I don't mean to laugh about it, but it became somebody'd show up with real passion, and I loved it, and I loved the energy they had and the things they were speaking about. I loved it, and then they would just do something faulty. That power and that energy that they had got, it overwhelmed them, and they lost. They lost their sight of why they were there. And it just ate them up, and it was real sad to see, and we tried. There's a lot of times we talked to a lot of the people out there, and we're like, hey, man, you guys should do something like this, something like that, It's like, we're out there covering media. We're not out there to be, we're a leader in our industry,
right?
We want more people to be more, down.
I remember telling those guys in CHOP though, I was like, man, can you guys just get a public information officer? Because even if they just come out at 9 a.m. and say there's no news today, then, I mean, it's fine. You know what I'm saying? I mean, from the media guys, we're just like, it would be easier if you could have somebody communicate so we could, because, there was literally global interest. I mean, how many interviews? So I talked to Eric Calligraphy earlier. He only did an interview with Eater. Remember, Eater wanted to know.
I was jealous about that one, too.
Yeah, see, that's the one you did a bit. But you're on ABC, NBC, CBS, BBC, CBC, all these things.
I mean, yeah, the AP, man, they came out there. That was a good interview. And they're like, they called me back. We like your sound bites. And I was like, they're not sound bites, man. They're my feelings. Yeah. And that was one of the things. I was like, I had to be very, very, very clear with other outside media organizations that came in and wanted to speak to me. And I said, listen, you have to be very specific when you ask me questions as to who's answering them, because I'm a resident, I'm a business owner, I live in this neighborhood, and I have my own opinions, and I work in media. So I have to be very clear as to who you're speaking to. You cannot interchange those. I am one person, but also I have different ways of approaching things when I wear different hats. Mm-hmm. Me out in the streets is, I'm one way, but if we're talking about business and media, and I try to carry myself a certain way, and that was tough in the CHOP, man. It was tough because they weren't real big fans of media there.
No, what was took a minute to get used to was being recorded at all times.
Yeah.
And then you had to learn if you wanted to talk about anything outdoors. And usually it wasn't necessarily malicious. People weren't recording in a malicious way. But then you'd see on Twitter 20 minutes later, it's like, hey, Omari Soil sitting there talking to somebody. I was like, wow, people record. And my mom always told me a long time ago, son, don't be saying nothing inappropriate out your mouth. But I was gonna ask you is that, do you think the City Hall, and a lot of people got it wrong, and I ask you this as a Capitol Hill resident, and somebody was up there, that Monday when the tear gas came out, and instead of protesters going away, they were right back again on Tuesday. And the mayor and a lot of people came out and they said, well, we feel your pain about George Floyd. We understand. do you think that they missed the mark because they didn't realize that people kept coming out because of that tear gas that came out that Monday? A lot of people became protesters who weren't protesters before. And real quick, and the fact that this was maybe what Seattle's first sustained protest in a residential neighborhood. You know, downtown is a destination. But a lot of people who were protesting literally lived in the building across the street from the police station.
In the chop zone. To answer your first side of that question is yes. I think that they definitely missed the mark. The tactics they used, I don't think they thought about the long end of it, and that was that they radicalized a lot of the residents up there of saying, like, you know, they supported from inside their house, and they definitely were behind the protesters, but they were not protesters. They were at home, they were at their house. Once the cops started throwing the tear gas and the flashbangs indiscriminately at people, and you're just trying to walk your dog or get to and from work, and you necessarily feel like you're being targeted, or when people were trying to walk into their homes that were inside the shop, they got questioned every, you know, where's your address? Do you have something to think? This is your ID. This is your old ID. You need something with your new thing. You can't bring your car in here. This and that. It really turned them and made them very, very angry. And then people had to move out of their buildings. I think that the city of Seattle should have really went out and reached out to some of the residents and some of the small business owners there and asked, you know, their opinions of how they should deal with the situation. I think everything happened so fast and moved so quickly that they didn't think of the impact it was going to have on the residents of that neighborhood. They were only thinking about themselves very selfishly.
Right, because I mean, and the thing is, when you talk about radicalized around it, man, there's still people now, a month, 2 months removed, who are like, yeah, I'm glad to see the choppers gone, but they're still like, you know, F the police. And so it isn't like the police sweeping out CHOP or something won back a lot of favor. You know, people are like, yeah, I'm glad the CHOP's gone, but I'm still not cool with the police.
Yeah, 1,000%. There's two sides of the coin, man. Right. I've seen people that were for the protesters at the beginning, and now they're against the protesters because they did not like what they saw happen during the CHOP. Mm-hmm. That really turned them off to the protest.
CHOP lost a lot of support on the way that they dealt with the neighbors.
And we saw that. I mean, we saw the numbers that were out there at the beginning of the Western Barricade, and when it became CHOP, you started seeing a lot of people that were out there for the protest leave and disperse, and then people come in new. So we started seeing new people.
That's true.
But then when the police took back the area, you know, I knew people at the beginning personally that were against the protesters. They did not like them out there. They don't like the violence. They don't like the anger and the hate towards each other. And they were totally against it. And then once they saw the way the police reacted and treated the residents there, the protesters that were there, who most of them were peaceful, they were like, now I'm definitely 100% against the city, 100% against the police. They kind of woke them up because it was out their front door.
Right.
They're not watching through a TV. They're walking out their front door and seeing it. You can't turn away and ignore this stuff going on right in front of you. You're watching it with your own two eyes. You know, I've been to many protests. You know, I've marched in many marches. You know, I've been to demonstrations. I camped during the Occupy down in Westlake. You know, I've seen it. I've never seen the police react necessarily like this. Even May Day, when that happened. I don't know. I'm curious to ask you, is like, you know, how do you feel about the recent altercations that have been ramping up and so quickly and so fast? Do you see it getting any better anytime soon? Like, what needs to change with the city and the protesters? Like, what would be your viewpoint as to how to get this to stop escalating so quickly? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different the protest tactics. Yeah. And again, I think that's lumping them together because the black community here does something every week. There's no police. There's no nothing. There's getting ready to be the Jimi Hendrix protest for justice, peace march, and I'm fairly certain there's not going to be any police, nobody, whatever. So, man, the black community, the legacy black community in Seattle has been protesting continuously here. No one hears about it.
We've been there.
Because it's peaceful and everything else. Now what occurs downtown. So maybe I just wanted to be able to define that. What's occurring downtown in some of this interactions here is like, man, people are getting to a point to where they are, they feel that they need to increase the level of tactics because they feel they're not being heard. Now, whether that's correct or not, if we continue upon that trajectory, and also with Seattle police, with their interaction with protesters, when was the last time that there has been a buffer of de-escalation? It might work, it might not. But try. I remember Pink Umbrella, the Flashpoint, right before Pink Umbrella, you hear me on tape saying, hey guys, let's bring this down. It didn't work, but I tried, and we don't see any type of de-escalation between what's happening right now out there in the streets. And if there's no de-escalation and tactics keep ratcheting up, I don't know. I don't see a quick and easy resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned with, of how the injuries that are happening, people being hurt. I'm hearing more and more stories about the quicker they are to arrest people.
The arrests are happening fast.
Real quick, the level of violence of the injuries that are happening, and it's against, media, people that are, trying to protect protesters, medical staff that are out there. It's everybody's getting it, and I second that is de-escalation. I don't even think they're wanting to hear that. The cops aren't wanting to hear it. They're obey my commands or, it's going down. I really encourage a lot of people that support us, if you do live here in the city of Seattle, to come out to some of these other marches in the Central District area. Something does happen pretty much every weekend. We always post it on our page. There's some good stuff going on out there. And I still talk to the protesters. I meet with those guys. I meet with a lot of different groups. I know some of them personally. I tell them the same thing that I would tell you guys. It's like, come. You can be amongst everything. There's ways to do things peaceful. There's ways to do stuff, crazy stuff when you're out there. But you gotta try. You gotta look at it from all perspectives. So I urge everybody to come. I don't know, and it's tough. It's tough out there. I try to be everywhere, but a lot of the things that's going down with the protests, it's just really, really sad. I don't like seeing people get hurt, and I don't like to see I think the only way change is going to happen is for people to keep being out there every day, and I urge people to always discuss. Have an open heart and open mind when you walk into a situation, and try to have some understanding. And that's why I appreciate you. I really do. You're willing to talk to everybody. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you on this thing is, out of all these people that you've interviewed, that you've got to talk with, that you've met, that you've interacted, what's one of your favorite interactions and conversations you had? And it could have been on camera that we've had. It could have been in a crowd. It could have been over the phone. But this whole thing with this Western Barricade and this Chop Chaz and this protest season, what's one of the best conversations that you've had? You don't even have to say who the person is. You just say what it's about. Maybe it was a private conversation, but because I know I've talked to some interesting people and had some really, really good dialogue on camera, off camera. But you've talked to a lot of people.
It's a bit different But I think that the best conversation, and it was a continuous conversation that happened for a few weeks, was the conversation that I had with the city of Seattle, like the citizens, the residents on the stream. Because I'd sit there and I'd be talking, and you just read the feedback of people, you know what I'm saying, in the city. And for at least 1 week there, you know, and then went to Chaz Chop, different things. And we had a lot of people on our streams through Chaz and Chop. But when the Western Barricade was there, it was almost like if it was TV set, every TV set in the city was tuned into the stream. And the conversations that we have on there about, you know, building a Seattle that we all deserve, aspiring for a better Emerald City, or about not outsourcing accountability and not outsourcing leadership, about us being willing to do what's hard right now. And some of the feedback that we got from people, I mean, it was just amazing, you know, in that sense. It was a powerful one. Like, if all this to be summed up for me, that 1 week when the Western Barricade was there, because every night, everybody, like this whole city, and really people all around the world were tuned in to see like what's going on in the Western Barricade. And the conversation, the general conversation, to be able to, you know, people allowed me to have that conversation with them, people here in the city. And I mean, it was a trying time, but it was a time, imagine that you had so many different people and backgrounds and everything else listening and communicating with each other. So that, to me, it was pretty dope.
Yeah, that was a good answer. I remember me and you would actually, we'd sit for some time after that and talk about, you know, the people watching and the people that were asking these questions and the way, you know, it all worked. Because I mean, you weren't really a streamer, right? I mean,
that's the thing is like, my background is actually big TV, or as a writer, you know, as Julia's always tell you, as a writer, big TV, big radio, you know, or writing. My first time pressing live ever was, and I mean, I've never even on my personal Instagram, I've never done anything live before May 29th. That was that Friday when I was down there in Pioneer Square. I guess so. And then there's that Friday, I mean that Saturday. But you know what the thing is, I think what came into play here is, like you said, I was right there, and we got a lot of footage and a lot of, you know, I mean, a lot of exclusive footage. But you know, in college, at WRVS 89.9 in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, man, I was a color commentary and play-by-play for men's and women's basketball for the Lady Vikings, for the Vikings and the Lady Vikings.
People could tell.
And it's crazy because that was years ago in career, you know. I mean, this is back when I was in college. But, you know, especially if you're a color, so, you know, play-by-play is got there, and then color kind of fills in the gaps in between the plays. But, you know, I used to do both at one point or another. It was play-by-play and color commentary. So play-by-play is, man, now the police have changed their posture. We're going to know, right, you know, the police have changed their posture. Here comes the color commentary. Good. Well, I'll be honest with you. If the officers who are there in front, who are right now aren't wearing gas mask protection, if they get tapped out by the officers who are wearing gas masks, then it's gonna get funky. And it was crazy because it wasn't until after all that I realized. Somebody said, "Man, you ever did play-by-play or something?" I said, "Well, I did back in college."
People around you started listening to you. They started forming a barricade around you to make sure that you could move freely, because it was information that they were learning too, because you had been there. So when you were saying that stuff to your viewers through the phone, people watching tuned in from the United States, all over the city, all over the different countries, they would go, "Oh yeah, they're right. He's right. We gotta get our goggles out. Like, you know, they're tapping them out. Okay. Oh, they're passing out flashbang. Oh, he's right." And I'm like, earplugs. Sound of, you know what I'm saying? So it was. You were literally, you're looking at it through your eyes, and people were watching. You looked at it through a different angle. You know, you were watching what was going on in the background and how they moved. and you'd ask officers questions to get some context as to why this is happening or whatever. Some would clarify, some wouldn't. And yeah, man, that was it was interesting. I mean, it was real interesting. I'm not a streamer either.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is some people are like live streamer. I was like, man, I'm not a live streamer. I mean, if anything, I would be more of a compliment if they were like, man, play-by-play commentator.
Yeah.
Be like, because that's a career that I actually had. I mean, this was my first time ever pressing the live button, but also I came out there to observe. I didn't come out there to incite. I came out to observe, and those are observation skills. So
my main thing is I wanted to come out there to make sure everybody was safe. The protesters were safe. Safety was my big thing. And if something, I didn't anticipate anything happening, but I like to be prepared. I mean, that's one thing about me. I have backups on backups on backups. Always, the bridge straight ahead is always best, but I got a ladder somewhere hidden for me. But it changed. When I linked up with you, you're my mans, and I was just like, this guy, man, he needs somebody out there to watch and make sure that, he can do the best job that I need to let him work, and I need to make sure, and other people. So I mean, we catch stuff from people all the time, it's like, I don't let that deter me from what I do, or, and our job's ever evolving. One day we're talking to this person, next day we want to do this, we want to do that. I'm really proud of what you're doing and like where you're going with Converge and making this space available to people, and and continuing. It's not like you were just covering the protest and you're like, we check in with those people and we have relationships with a lot of those people. I made some really, really, really good friends from people that I've met at the Western Barricade, and my time in CHOP, and I continue to work with some of those people. So, those are very, very fond. It's definitely affected, me very deeply, and I'll never forget it, and I want to see the change. I want to see it not for nothing. That all that blood, sweat, and tears, that sacrifice, people getting injured, their time, residents being, tear gassed and pushed out, to be for some kind of change.
Right. Antonio Mays Jr., Summer Taylor, Lorenzo Anderson.
100%, man. That's, and also all the other young lives that are lost around the city of Seattle. That's something that really hits me hard in my heart, is that, that stuff got a lot of coverage, when Chaz Chops, all these national news outlets, and, it's like, there's stuff going on in different neighborhoods around Western Washington that, those people's lives are important too, and just because it wasn't at the hands of police doesn't mean it makes it any less of hurt for the family and their friends. So, try to put some focus on the other young people's lives that were lost to any kind of violence, not just gun violence. Yeah.
Bobby Stills, he said, I think this is the first of quite a few conversations that we're going to have before we get out of here. Maybe you could thank the people who support us. These are the people, man, some people, $5 a month, you know what I'm saying? They support Converge through Patreon and through the Facebook platform.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody that follows us, donates to us, supports us. We have a staff here that works really, really, really hard. A lot of volunteers that come through, and we're trying to make some really, really good stuff for you guys. And we're a growing company, and please, even a handshake coming up in public is worth something to me. We get a lot of love from you guys, and I just want to reciprocate that love to you guys and say I appreciate it. It really fills my heart with joy when people come up and recognize me for some of the work that I've done, and it makes me really proud. And I get a lot of my friends and family telling me about how proud they are, and that's the thing about it, is we've been working hard at doing this for a long time, and we want to be able to bring other people into our family that are to continue to do good stuff. And so, all the help we get from the public, you know, we appreciate and keep watching. And we hope to make you guys proud, and you know, and I'm open to any suggestions for some stuff you guys like to see. You know, I'm here.
That's it. Postman. Good stuff.
There you go.
Mr. Director. All right. Good stuff, everybody.